Hey guys, and welcome to this tip for Digital Classroom made possible by our friends from BenQ. Now the smaller episodes are all made possible by BenQ. Now the bigger episodes, as you know, are possible by BenQ and Rogue Expo Imaging. Now one of the most asked questions is probably, Frank, how do I work my workflow? Sounds obvious or not? If you want to know how my workflow works, then enjoy this episode of Digital Classroom, the tip section. Okay, so what is workflow? Workflow is very easy to explain. Workflow is the way that you work through your images or through your work or whatever you do. It can be video. The workflow can even be if you're a painter or if you are a carpenter. It's the flow of your work. Now, the word flow means that something has to flow. It has to be easy. And one of the things that I found in a lot of photographers' questions is that their workflow isn't easy. The best thing for photography is actually to have your workflow down to whatever you find comfortable, whatever you make, however it makes it faster and easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you very quickly how I retouch, and I'm going to explain to you all the steps in this episode. So it's going to be the way that I work. In your case, it can be totally different, but as you can see in a moment, it's the same steps over and over, and that's the most important thing because that will make the work flow. Okay, now if you're using Lightroom, you will probably have all your images in Lightroom. Now in my case that's Capture One, so I have all my images in Capture One, but in essence it's the same thing, it's just your raw converter. So let's start very simple. The first thing you have to do is I give all my images stars. Now in this case, these are all my 5-star images from last weekend session. So these are the images I'm going to retouch. Now after I did this, of course I have to go into Photoshop. And this is where we actually are going to give the attention to in this video. Now I have a small setup here called TIFF, Uncompressed Adobe RGB, and open up Photoshop. So as soon as I press Process, it will actually open up Photoshop. And there we have our images. Now, every time I do an image, I do the same thing over and over again. So this is really the workflow that I use. Now, I created an action for the skin. It's called Portrait Smooth. Now, what it actually does, it starts up Imagenomic Portraiture. And I'm going to show you that now step by step, but normally it's an action. So the first filter I run is always for the skin. It's called Imagenomic Portraiture. It's a really cool filter, really effective, and it's really easy to work with. And because you can create an action for it, it's my favorite filter for skin. Okay. And I've set up everything on default smoothing, medium and high sometimes, but this time medium. You select the picker and you very simple select some of the skin tones and just let the filter do its magic. And you have a before and after. And as you can see, it's a very, very subtle change. And I really like this about the filter. I don't like my models to end up as Barbies. I want my models to end up like real persons. And it smooths just enough for that. Okay, press OK. It's now running the filter. And it now created a new layer with that filter. Now, of course, I don't want the filter on all the shots, or sorry, on the whole image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer. Layer mask, hide all. I'm going to go into 100%. I'm going to take a brush, and because the layer mask is actually black, I need a white brush to paint over to get the effect back in the areas where I want it. Okay, there we go. Make sure you take all the skin tones you want affected. There we go. So this is it. And we're done. So before and after. And again, normally it's an action, but I want to show you now step by step. Now the thing that I do, and some people won't, is actually I will do a flatten image. And because I have a very structured workflow, I know that if I do something wrong, I have to go back to the start. Now, if you're not very structured and you want to make sure that something doesn't go wrong, make sure you don't flatten your layer so you can always go back. But in my case, I don't have to go back. Okay, now what I do, and this is always the following step, is actually create some sharpness. So create a new layer, a duplicate layer, and we're actually going to
do a filter called Topaz Clarity. Now I have two that I really like, Topaz Detail for sharpening and Topaz Clarity when I have something with smoke. I really want that smoke to pop, so I have to make sure that I use Topaz Clarity for that. And also here I use presets, because presets are an easy way to work. And this is my preset. There you go. So it doesn't do a lot, but it just gives you that extra punch in the smoke. You see that? Okay. Press OK. And there you have the effect. Also here, I don't want it on the whole image. So layer, layer mask, reveal all. In this case, I want it on most of the image. So I will actually do a reveal all. In this case, I have white paper. So I'm going to use a black brush. And I'm going to paint it out of the skin, because I don't like the effect on the skin. As you can see, I do this really rough. Of course, you can go into 100%, but I want to do it a little bit faster for the video. Okay, there we go. Now is the next step, and this is an important step, and this varies per shot. I'm going to look at problems in the shot. Is there something that I want to take out? Is there something I don't like in the shot? Now in this case we used a loom cube, and I think that this transition is a little bit too harsh. So I'm going to go into 100%. I'm going to create a new layer. And this is a really cool trick. And I'm just going to paint with white. There we go. Going to duplicate that layer. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to blur that top layer a lot. And it gives me a nice little glow effect. As you can see, it just gives you that nice glow effect. Now the top part I do a lot. And it doesn't look like much now, but the bottom part, or the middle part in this case, I will just blur a little bit. Filter, blur. And there we go. So it gives me a really nice soft transition. Because I'm done with this, I again do a layer flatten image. And my final step is actually tinting the image. Now for tinting there are many solutions. You can use DxO Film Pack, you can use Nik Analog FX Pro, but in my case I absolutely love to use Alien Skin Exposure. So I'm going to use version 2. That's the newest one. And this is a matter of just clickety-click until I see what I like. So in other words, I will go through all these settings until I see one that I really like. I love this one. I love that it gives the blues a slightly different hue. Look at this. This is awesome. And then I will just go through some others. And the cool thing about Alien Skin is I can just hover over the preview buttons and it will give me a preview. Now if I like something, I can lock that look by just clicking on it. So now this is the dominant look. I can hover over the other ones until I see one that I like more. For example, this one. To be honest, I still love this one the best. And because these are my own presets, I probably know that that's the one that I'm going to select. So I'm going to use the Chinese horror one. What's in a name, right? And there we go. And press apply. And we're done. Layer, flatten image, and save the image. The only thing you have to remember is now I have to retouch the other images in exactly the same way, because otherwise I will break my style and all images look different, and that's something that you don't want to deliver to a client or put online.
Okay, so as you could have seen in the video before, my workflow is very structured. I do the same thing over and over again, and that doesn't mean it's boring, it's just that I have that same structure. So I open up my image in Photoshop. I will first retouch the skin, zoom in to make sure that there's actually no small things missed, but Ingrid's skin is really good. So that's the filter image nomic portraiture. The next step is actually the extra sharpening, and I will do that with Topaz Clarity or Topaz Detail. You can use tonal contrast from Nik, or if you're on a Mac, check out Mac Fun Intensify, which is absolutely great. And when that's done, I again flatten my images, so I have the same image in one layer. And then I will do the tinting. First I will take out some smaller details, like in this case we used the loom cube, so I wanted to flatten that just a little bit to make it more nice. And the thing is, if you do that before tinting, you will actually not see any differences in the tints. For example, if I would tint it a little bit yellowish in the highlights, it's really terrible to later on do something with lighting. So do that before you tint. Tinting should be the final step. So after I took out some of the smaller problems, in this case with the Lume Cube, just make it a little bit brighter, I do the tinting. Again, for tinting you can use DxO Film Pack or Alien Skin Exposure, whatever you guys like. And the tinting is my final step. That's when I store. Now, some people ask me, like, shouldn't sharpening be your final step? Now, if you watch the video closely, you see I don't sharpen my image. I give it a little bit of a pop, like clarity. The sharpening process I do only when I print, because sharpening is very important to adjust the sharpness of your image to the print. For example, a smaller print needs different sharpening than a bigger print. So, my tip is very simple. Make sure you find something that works for you and stick with it. So do the same thing over and over again. And trust me, it's repetitive, but it's not boring. It just makes your workflow way easier. And find the right filters. A lot of people have trouble paying money for filters, but in the end, they save you a lot of money because they make your work so much easier. Hey, thank you so very much for watching this special episode of Digital Classroom. If you like what you see, subscribe to our channel, leave comments below, and of course, we'll see you again next time or in our vlog behind the closed doors. Bye guys.